Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. The chains you often wear around your neck are the same chains that were wrapped around your ancestors' necks, arms, and legs. The hatred you wore so proud upon your neck was the same hatred that left your ancestors into bondage, that left your great-great-great-grandmother in fear that her slave master would rape her again. It all started when darkened skin was put into ships where diseases killed them all, put into plantations where death was promised, but until the cotton was picked, the advantage took place. Years and years of bondage, captivity bonding, communist seeking, democracy lacking, Emancipation Proclamation 1863. The time in history where I thought the establishment of colorism, racism, and inequality would all be done. But I was wrong to think that the moments in society where we took big steps were the moments that were tucked underneath our blood. Civil rights movement 1950 through 1960s. The time in history where water fountains depressed the colored and held white privilege over the heads and faces of what America is today. 1790 Naturalization Act, 1857 Dred Scott versus Sanford, the Renaissance, Reformation, scientific theories, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Emmett Till, the power of an illusion. But today, never had I thought the tables to turn. Never had I seen black on black crime, black on black hatred, black on black gentrification, black on black prisons, black girl rape, black boy killed. I've seen it all. Tragedy, privilege, pain, life, and death. We've spent so much time focusing on the trends: baby fat, trash rappers with no message, fast girls, fast boys not seeing the bigger picture, that this world's damage goes beneath the ocean floor, that nothing can pull us back up. I realized that reality as Bloods and Crips killed the friends of mine never had I seen again. As there was a divide from dark-skinned people to light-skinned people, curly hair from nappy hair, so ignorant that the hair that grew out of all of our heads would not be hair if we didn't have those ancestral historical figures to give us the strands. I realized the damage was so deep. As the mornings where I woke up proud to be a colored woman, I was only proud that God gave me the ability to wake up. But for several moments, something in me wished and thought to ask, why couldn't he just let me sleep forever? Waking up a colored woman, I felt the torture of the ones who suffered before me. I sensed the image of failing the paper brown bag test. I sensed the image of being thrown onto a ship where the chain I saw people wearing was the same material and chain that held onto the legs, arms, and necks of those ancestral historical figures who fought like hell for the damage that has been done to never appear throughout history again, to never find its way killing adolescent hearts, to prevent little girls from being made fun of because their afros were too big, to stop letting skin color become a preference, but something that everyone could uphold. But I was a fool to think that the past could be valued instead of the present that is belittled by the culture of all who wears the chains, choking their inner self, allowing for their hatred to unleash, letting their hatred follow the history of sinking to the bottom of the ocean floor. Now, I wrote that poem, Chain Gang, as I realized that the inequality and racism around me was something that began to affect me, as it was something that I looked at my melanin within my skin, that the world would depict whether or not I was to be treated right, whether or not I would get into certain schools, whether or not my self-confidence would be on the same level as girls in my high school. And I wrote that poem as I realized that this was a problem that needed to be talked about, something that couldn't be tucked underneath the sheets and tucked underneath our comforters. And the way in which I was able to gain that self-confidence back and that self-love was through poetry. Why should I give you a vivid picture of poetry when everything is in front of you? If you were to look at yourself right now and see that your body's figure is a page of words giving someone their existence today, your pride and acceptance is allowing for people to try it themselves. Your curiosity to the world is making people question their own. You are the actual cure to the clinical depression given to the minds of those who are prescribed drugs over and over, making their mind more corrupt than it already was. There's that typical question of, why is poetry so important? And poetry is important because it attacks the aspect of a political, social, historical, and economical mindset. I refuse to accept the fact that if I gave you a pen and a piece of paper right now, that you would say you couldn't write something powerful, or that you wouldn't be a source that could be considered credible. But you're all wrong. Poetry is the emotion you evoke as the backsides of adolescence become the backsides of bullets. Poetry are the tears you produce because you're sick and afflicted in a world where the cures of diseases are hidden because of a lust for money. And when I look at poetry, it is something that has to be triggered through so many forms. I look at all of your faces today. You may cause me to write a poem because all of you are beautiful. It is what triggers us in life to write. And the most important thing that you should take from us today is that poetry is triggered through all forms: life, cancer, tranquility, war, genocide, famine, and death. And I look at famine as kids in third world countries die every day, but you say you're not capable. I look at genocide as there has been a Jehovah's Witness genocide and Rwanda genocide, and you say that you're not able to write something. I look at tranquility as it is a calmness feeling within us that leaves and makes us broken every time someone takes it away from us. And I look at suicide as the teens of rates on the charts are ridiculously high, but no one talks about it. And I look at injustice as the color of our skin depicts whether or not we will be treated right. And how does that sound to you? And when I think about all of these things, the thing in which triggers me is what I see around the world. How slavery is something that is still brutalizing to society today, that we can never forget about it. Yes, we can forgive, but we can never forget. And I want you to think about that. Poetry is something that we see manifested within all of our lives. It's something I see manifested within my own life. I look at 8.2 cancer cases yearly. I look at 300,000 people who died in Darfur genocide, and those are only the bodies they could see. Those are the only ones they haven't tucked away in the closet. Those are the ones they haven't seen at the bottom of the ocean floor that are still there today. Those are the casualties that have been created and put within the percentage. But what about the ones they didn't include? And then I look at suicide. As we keep saying we're not able to write something, when I see that every 40 seconds, a teen is taken away from you. Count it on your hands. 10 sets of 4. And the arrival of 2020, that 40-second time period is supposed to change to 20 seconds. And I want you to think about that. Before we say we're not capable of writing something, there are 3 important questions that I want you to take home today. It has helped me to shape me and be the person that I am today. And that first question is, why are we so afraid to speak up? What is the fear captivating our voices? And how does our perception upon the world affect our reality? And as I asked you guys these 3 questions, there is one that may affect you the most. And the question that kept affecting me was, why am I so afraid to speak up? And I guess I cared too much about what girls in my high school would think. What would boys think? What would the people around me think? And as I thought about poetry, it was something that I couldn't let control me. I couldn't let people tell me what and what not to write in my book. I stopped caring about what my friends thought, my parents, people around me. Because all that mattered was that my beliefs and my fear in God allowed me to write what I do today. And you can't care. You can't listen to what people say. And it's that silence inside of us that erupts so bad to the point where you have to write about it. And it all goes back to my 9th grade year when I wrote my first poem. It was in Miss Gilliam's class. Ordinary day in 9th grade. And the name of that poem was called Lost. And you may ask me, why did I entitle that? And I titled it that because I was lost and sick in a world where people can look at this body and people can look at the bodies around me to be something to be pure. They labeled it as other things. And it was a problem. And as I was able to write about it, I was able to make an impact on other people. I was able to give that confidence to many girls around my high school. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what is it that I can write about? I look at all of you today, and you've probably experienced more than I have. But we keep saying we're not able to write about it. We keep thinking we're not good enough. We keep letting social norms and labels within society trigger us. We keep letting it name us when we should be naming ourselves. So if the silence can erupt inside of me, it can also erupt inside of you. And that will only happen when trials and tribulations become more apparent, when depression will take over your mind, and where the impact you will make will be one that can impact so many lives. It can decrease the suicide rate. And you know how I know that? Because I have stopped people from killing themselves. I have stopped people from losing themselves. I have stopped myself from losing myself. And I want you to think about that. The danger of silence. It became apparent to me that silence was a result of fear. I spent the majority of my life thinking about what to write and how to write without overdoing it. But it was the silence. The silence became my danger. Words not said developed wounds that were beneath my skin. God taught you and me that the most valuable thing you could give to the world was the possessions and thoughts you think no one else would go through. Sacrificing something for good. I was scared. Scared that the words I write today will turn back and hurt me because of the opinions of those who killed the depthness of coming out of their shells, to kill the sounds that reappeared again and again. But as I observe, I see that silence are the problems that goes unheard, unseen, and forgotten. Silence was the deaths in Darfur genocide. The girl whose tears wept deep inside her pillow. The woman who lost her dignity after every night of being raped. The natural disasters where the government raised taxes and mortgages watching the people suffer. Silence is all over sinking in places where help is needed. The silence in me stopped as I saw the blades he picked up every day got tiring, as the tears that established me hurt me in the form of the worst brutalization. So let your silence disappear as the battle you fight every day becomes one that can help one another. Let your silence disappear as your tears come out on the paper where your voice is able to come out and be heard. Let your silence disappear as you realize that the danger you bring to the world is silence. Thank you.